In this episode, I will be interviewing Lisa Jeffs. Lisa is an intuitive mindset and success coach. She teaches purpose-driven leaders how to step into their power and create a life and business they love. She believes we have no limits greater than the ones we put on ourselves. With passion, she shows driven men and women how to move past the self-imposed limitations and become unstoppable. She has been featured in publications such as Tiny Buddha and YFS magazine. She's also a contributing writer at Arianna Huffington's Thrive Global and London's Having Time. Today's special guest, Lisa Jeffs, is going to share some amazing insights. Let's get started. Hello, Lisa. I'm so excited to have you on the Empowered Mindset Summit. Welcome to the summit.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to have this chat with you today.
Lisa, I'd like to know a little bit more about you. How did you get to where you are today? An intuitive mindset and success coach and a leader of an online community of over 30,000 people. That's amazing.
It's really good. I love what I do. I love who I serve. I love my community. And when I think back to when it started, it's all very organic. It was a very organic process to go from where I was as a counselor in the school board originally into starting my own coaching practice and really moving into the mindset field. But when I think back when I was younger, before school board, before all that, I did go through a lot of my own challenges, such as anxiety to the point where it was paralyzing, not even wanting to leave my house type of anxiety, depression, addiction, whole bunch of stuff. So those challenges really gave me a lot of resilience and a lot of practice in mastering my own mindset. I did get support, moving through anxiety, but a lot of it was taking what I learned from others and really implementing it into my own life. So when I started my coaching practice, originally I started working in the health and fitness field, and it kind of gradually just morphed into mindset, because that's what we always were focusing on, the mindset, because at the foundation, that's where the shift starts happening. That's where the transformation starts to happen. So it was very organic into where I am today.
Yeah, right. Every shift and to achieve any goal, you really have to work with your beliefs and what you're telling yourself and have that mind shift so that you're one step closer to achieving your goal. And you felt attracted to that kind of work, right?
I think for me, I like to get to the root of the issue and really focus on, I'm not surface level, and surface level shifts, they have their time and their place. But for me, it's all about getting to skipping the surface level. Let's get really deep into the core. What is that root cause of what's going on here? And if we can shift that, if we can go into that, the deep part, then everything is just like a ripple effect with everything else. So for me, it was just that there's no other way. It was that's where I was going, and that's it.
I love this question, and I keep asking it every guest. What's your definition of an empowered mindset? Because we all have our own. What's yours?
For sure. Yeah, absolutely. My definition of empowered mindset is a mindset that really acknowledges responsibility. So there's no blame, there's no victim, and we can all fall into those I like to call it the shadow aspects at points in our life. But to be empowered, you really have to take full ownership over your mindset, over your life, over your career, and do what it takes to switch it. So do what it takes to make those changes, whether that's investing in yourself, whether that's looking for the answers, going to the library, listening to podcasts, whatever that is. It's taking the actions needed to make the changes that are going to get you the results that you want. It can't be the blame game, right? That is a very disempowered place to be. So for me, empowered mindset includes ridiculous ownership of your state.
Mm. Such an important step for moving forward. Just
It
taking,
really is.
yes, and just
You have the
staying in
ownership.
that.
Yeah, and this is another reason why we can't change other people, because if they're not in a space where they're ready for that change, we're not going to change them,
Mhm.
right? You have to be in that state where they're like, yes, I'm ready, and I'm ready to do the work to make these shifts happen.
And that's not always like a happy journey, right?
Oh, God.
Ownership is going to come with some, maybe facing your reality and facing your um, lies that you're telling yourself, and maybe some lack of some skills or understanding. And that's
Oh,
all
for sure.
good. Is just don't get stuck in that, because that's part of the process. And finding a way to deal with that self-compassion and validation, it's going to get
Mhm.
to the next level.
Yes, I love how you said self-compassion, because we all make excuses. We all fall into, times when, I don't have enough time, or I don't have enough money, or whatever it is, excuses. And when you can really own it and be like, okay, all of that is that's just nonsense. Like, I'm just making a whole bunch of excuses to not move
Mhm.
forward. But you know what? I'm going to love myself anyway, because we all do it, and I'm human, and I'm not perfect, and I don't need to live up to some standard that doesn't exist.
Mm.
Right? And you can bring in that self-compassion. It really makes the journey a lot lighter and a lot more fun. I know for myself, I had to hit that rock bottom to start making some serious changes. I had to reach that rock bottom level, but once I did, um, it just became, you kind of get into that momentum, and it gets easier.
Mm. Lisa, as a mindset coach, you probably worked with a lot of people and you've noticed maybe some patterns. And I'd like to know from your perspective, why do some people succeed in life and others just get to remain stuck in the path that they're caught in?
So there's been I've seen videos where people talk about like the success gene or success DNA, that some people are just going to be successful and others aren't going to be successful. And I can't disagree with that more. I just don't believe that. I believe everyone has the ability to be a success. First part is defining what is success to you. What is success to you? Because what's success to someone else not is going to be totally different from another person. And I think people get lost in this ideal, especially with social media, Instagram, where they see these people with a specific life, and that's their definition of success. And if they haven't reached that, then they can fall into a comparisonitis and really get into a defeated place. So really defining, well, what is success to me, right? And what is going to be that defining level that I get to? And seeing that once you get clear on what that success level is, then you can start creating a path towards it, right? Because if a person doesn't know what their definition of success is, and they see it as being so far off into the distance, like, how am I ever going to reach that level? Oftentimes they won't even bother starting, right? And they can keep themselves stuck in this place. So people that reach that level of success first define it, and then they just don't stop. They just don't give up. They just continue, right? I always say, like, the only failing is giving up completely. As long as you keep going, you're going to get there eventually. You
Mm-hmm.
just keep on the path.
Mm-hmm. Right. And what is the most important thing to do or not to do to get unstuck? To get
The
to that?
most important thing to do.
Sorry?
The most important thing to do.
Yes, or not to do, maybe, to get unstuck.
What I've witnessed is the most important thing to do is simply looking at what is my next step. So not as what is 5 steps from now, not what is 10 steps, not what is 100 steps into the future. What is the very next step? Maybe that's just reaching out to someone. Maybe that's doing a little bit of online research. Maybe that's going away for a couple of days to like break the pattern of your life. but what is the very next step instead of looking so far into the future? Because once you start going into that spiral, stuff gets overwhelming, stuff gets confusing, an overwhelmed mind and a confused mind rarely take the actions needed to move forward. And when you start going so far into the future, you start thinking about the hows. How is this going to work? How am I going to do this? And how is this ever going to come together? And then it's like you end up in the fetal position and you're just like, no, I can't do this. It's too much. Next step. What is that very next step? That's it. And then what is the next step after that? What is the next step after that? And slowly but surely, you're going to take the steps needed and you're going to get to where you want to go.
I love it. I often, with my clients, ask them to focus on a week at a time. Like they come with anxiety. A lot of them, are on disability leave and not working, and they're overwhelmed with various types of worries and fears. And in order to work with that, you really have to shrink that focus to 1 week at a time, right? Okay, you're going to only plan a week at a time and, worry about those things that need to be part of that week and not think of what's going to be in a month until they are able to take on more weeks, like 2 weeks at a time or a month, or planning an event. So I think it's so important to just focus on this step you're in, or the next step you need to take, and not try to solve all of your problems in one day, because that's kind of the anxiety type of mindset where you have so many things to do, you're trying to solve them all, and because you're kind of keeping them hanging here in your mind, you're under the impression that you're doing something to solve them, but you're not, because you can't possibly solve 15 things that are major that you worry about, right? You can only start with one. And
you can only start with one. Yeah, you can only start with one. Yeah, and I know for myself, I've experienced times where I've gone way too far forward and looking at all the steps, and you just get to a place where it's not even fun anymore. It's not even enjoyable thinking about going in that direction, because it's like now you've created this big, overwhelming mindset monster about the project. So I take my own advice and I shrink it down. Like, just what is that very next step? That's it.
I know that often people have that inner voice, that self-sabotaging voice inside that's keeping them from moving forward, from growing. What are some of the examples of or things that people are telling themselves that you've noticed with your clients?
So I think everyone at the core has somewhere along the lines of, I'm not enough, or I'm not good enough. Somewhere deep inside of them, there's this voice that's saying, I'm not enough, I'm not good enough. And at the core, I believe that that's really what stops people a lot from moving forward. There are some other ones that are very common, such as, I don't have enough time, I don't have enough money. These are both resources, right? These are both resources that we have access to. So again, that's not a valid reason not to move forward, right? When you're resilient and you're determined, you can access those resources. But again, I think at the core, it's just this inner child that comes out, and it's like, who am I to do this? Am I enough to do this? And one of the things, when I started my self-development journey was understanding that, oh my God, like we all kind of have this. We all have this. Because a lot of times we look at people, again, on Instagram or Facebook or in the media, and we think there's no way that person ever had this thought that they might not be enough. And yeah, I guarantee that at some point they did. If not, they still have it. Because I think at the core, it always kind of pops up sometimes.
How do you work with it? What do you do to come out of that dialogue that's not going to get you anywhere?
Exactly. So I love to challenge that thought. So one of the things I do with all my clients is we challenge the thought. So how can we prove that thought is not true, right? So it's, well, how are you enough? How are you enough right now in your life? And then I tend to get them to do an absorbent amount, a list of really figuring out how they are enough. So how are they already enough with their family? How are they already enough with their friends? How are they already enough at their career? And really looking at this list continually and feeling into it. So one of the things, especially for us parents, are, well, how are you enough with your kids? Like really getting into that emotion of, oh my God, I'm an incredible like mom or dad with my children, and really feeling it. And then we start telling ourselves this new story. I am enough. I am enough. And in the mind, we're thinking, I am enough. And we're going through the scenarios of how we're already enough. And eventually you get to a place where in your, like deep within inside of you, you really start cultivating that confidence of, yes, I am enough. I am enough. And now I can move forward, take the actions that are going to prove that I am enough. Because it's one thing to tell yourself, and it's another thing to really take those actions and prove to yourself, oh yeah, I can do this.
It's a powerful exercise. And I think that takes intentional commitment to practice what you just said. Just sit down and write a few things that prove you are enough, and what you were able to achieve in life, and what are the things that you're doing well and good, and having that time to reflect, it's going to build, rather than thinking that, oh, if I'm going to just complete this project, or if I'm going to get this job, or if I'm going to buy myself this car, I will feel more confident. It's something that is more like an inner work that you need to do on yourself, rather than external, because the external is so temporary.
It's definitely not external. I've been there in places where I thought, if I just reach this point, if I just get this diploma, or if I just, no, because then it's just, I need something else. It has to come from the internal knowing of, oh, I am enough.
I love it. So how do you help your clients experience breakthrough? What are your strategies? How do you walk them to that place of success?
To really getting to that place where they're like, oh my God, I believe I can control my own existence. So for me, that really is the breakthrough of understanding I'm not just, the world's not happening to me. I am creating my life. I am creating what I have. And if I don't like something, then I can switch it around. So the first thing I always do with my clients is a process where they get really crystal clear what is going on inside of them. So what are the thoughts? What are the fears? What are the worries? What's going on that's getting that the thoughts that aren't serving their bigger vision? And then again, we go through challenging them. Well, if this is not serving you, then how can we prove it's not your truth, right? And really taking a stance of, my thoughts aren't me. I'm not just, a whole bunch of thoughts going around. I can control them. So if we start getting clear what they are, we start challenging them. And if it's not working anymore, then what do we want to think instead? What's the new story? What's the new story that's going to get me to the results I want? That's going to help me create my big, exciting vision. And then, well, what actions do I have to take? Because words are great, a new story is great, but if I'm not actually taking the actions, then they're not going to work.
I'm not moving.
We're not going to move forward. So it's really within that process that has this massive transformational change. And then at the end of it, they're like, oh my God, if I can do this for this goal or this situation, I can do it for any situation. Right? And so, really taking power back.
Speaking about your story, which I read on your website, you were saying that for you to become who you are today, you had to to do that by conscious creation. So I guess you've explained a little bit of that. What did you have to do to be who you are, and what that conscious creation means?
Yeah, so conscious creation to me means, well, what is that identity I'm stepping into? So how am I going to be showing up? Because if we look at my identity years ago, like 20, 25 years ago, how I would have identified was someone who had a lot of social anxiety, who didn't like to speak in front of people, who would rather just kind of stay in her little bubble rather than get out there. And who I am today, it was through conscious creation. So it was, who is this new, who do I want to step into the world as? How do I want to show up, right? One of my values is just being unapologetically you. So showing up into the world with your dreams and your passion and your goals and how you want to look and everything, just unapologetically showing up as you. And through that, I decided, well, what is that? What do I have to do to be that person? Like, how do I need to show up every day? What are the decisions I'm making? How am I like dressing? How am I walking? How am I speaking to people? How am I making eye contact with someone? What are the choices I'm making? What are the thoughts I'm thinking? So it's literally this whole big list of, who is this new identity? What am I consciously creating? And I can tell you, who I am now is not who I'm going to be in 20 years, because I guarantee I'm going to be consciously creating a whole new identity, because I love to shift and change and morph into something new. It's very exciting to me.
And it's a continuous process of growing, of tapping into more abundance and becoming more of something else. And it doesn't ever stop. And
doesn't ever stop.
Yes, absolutely. I love it. And I think that, by your wonderful experience, you just are saying that you were not born that way. Is that right? You just had to make yourself, you had to build yourself up, and consciously putting things that you wanted to see in your life and work at that continuously on a daily basis.
So what I see happen sometimes is people that they're not connected, they don't feel connected with themselves, they don't really feel connected with what they're doing, and there's this need to, like, I need to go find myself, I need to go find myself. And this is a whole different way to look at it. Well, what if you didn't need to go find yourself? What if you could just create yourself right now? What is it that you want to experience? Like, who do you look up to? Who do you admire? Who do you look at and say, oh my God, I would love to do what she's doing, or kind of be somewhat like that. So it's not a sense where you need to, travel Europe forever. Not that there's anything wrong with that, but go on to find yourself. What if it was just you creating yourself, conscious creation?
Yes, and I don't believe in that finding yourself either. It's just connecting to what is important to you, what you desire, your dreams, and manifesting that into your actions, because it's one to desire and want it, but then be passive with your actions and not reflect that in your actions, and obviously the transformation will not happen. But the other thing is to actually implement and take that courage to shift things, to do something that you thought you couldn't do before, but because now you are aware and conscious of your choices and who you want to become and manifest in your life, you have that courage to do something that is new.
And it does take courage, right? It does take courage to step out and do something that, your family may look at you like, oh, what is going on with that? What is happening? Right? It takes a lot of courage to create yourself, but it's so worth it, and it's such a power position. You are standing in your power when you do that.
Yes, and then you're true to your inner self. You're true to what you want to create in life, and that's you're integral, and that is like a strong pillar to build upon. And I think nobody can take that away if you only let it come out of your hands and be taken.
It's quite
inspiring by criticism. Yeah,
exactly. Yes, really leading the way of, and inspiring others to do the same, because it's not something we talk about very often. Well, how do you want to consciously create yourself today? I don't know. Right? Like, really teaching people you do have the power, right? You don't have to be reactive to the world around you. You really can create it.
And before we're moving forward with our discussion, I'd like our viewers to know that you have a free gift for them. It's a guided visualization that they can download at the link below this video. Thank you so much, Lisa, for your gift.
Yes, you're so welcome.
Lisa, give us your 3 top tips for cultivating that empowered mindset. What do you think it's so important to create or to develop? What are those 3 top things?
So the 3 things, kind of what I already was speaking about, really getting clear, taking ownership, first of all, right? Removing any blame or any blame is just such a disempowering place to be. And then getting really clear, well, what is going on inside of me? What are these thoughts? Because there's so much subconscious programming going on. A lot of people have no idea what they're thinking. One of the first things I did when I was really becoming more self-aware was I took a piece of paper, and for 1 week I wrote down any thought that was that I noticed myself thinking when my energy was off and I wasn't feeling great. So what am I thinking in that moment? So really getting clear what is going on inside of you, right? Getting crystal clear, and it might even take literally taking a paper and a pen and taking note. What are fears going on inside of you? What are the doubts? What is the critical talk that's going on? Second step is, well, if I don't like these thoughts and these thoughts are making me feel disempowered, or they're making me feel like I can't move forward, or it just don't make me feel good at all. How can I prove that these aren't my truth? How can I prove that this is not who I'm going to be showing up as anymore? Right? And then it's, well, what is my new story waking up? Waking up every day, what am I going to be telling myself? What do I want to feel as I go throughout my day? Do I want to feel like, the world is against me and, I'm crashing down and there's so much lack and scarcity in this world? Or do I want to tell myself a new story that there's abundance available for everyone, that joy is my natural state, right? And the more you start telling yourself this new story, even if at first you're like, I just don't believe this at all. The more you can start telling yourself a new story, it's going to feel more real because your external world is going to start mirroring that new story.
I love it. So you're saying taking ownership and move away from the blaming habits.
Blame game.
Yeah. And then identify and reflect on what's going on inside you so that you can pick those things that are not empowering but disempowering to you, and then change the story, change the statements, challenge those things, and find what you'd like to tell yourself instead, and how you want to empower yourself, what kind of statements you'll have to replace the old ones with, and waking up to a new story every day.
Exactly. Because one of the things that really keeps people in a spiral is the fears, right? It's the fears. It's the worst case scenario, right? And a lot of people will go throughout their day and they'll have almost this like low grade anxiety, this panic. Well, if we can get clear, well, what are the fears that are going on inside, right? And really start picking apart those fears, right? And challenging them. Like, is this reality? Like, is this true? Or is this just a fear? Is this your subconscious programming coming out, creating the worst case scenario, right? You start understanding that, oh, yeah, you know what? It is just something within inside of me. I can challenge it, and I can put in a different new belief that serves the results that I want to get.
Yes. And what would a person with an empowered mindset spend and invest their energy in, and what they would avoid spending or wasting their time on? So maybe that's describing your daily routines or things that are priorities for yourself, coming from that success mindset. What are some of the things that you prioritize and then you're eager to invest the time and energy in? Some of the things that you decided long ago, maybe I'm not going to spend time on that.
Yeah. So I'll say first of all, I love to learn. So I think an empowered mindset seeks out new things to learn. I love self-improvement. I mean, I take it to the next level. You don't have to take it to my level to have an empowered mindset, but what is it that you're absorbing every day? So an empowered mindset is going to be really conscious on, what am I absorbing? Is it stuff that's improving my life, or is it stuff that's making me feel worse about my life, right? So things to avoid are picking up your phone first thing in the morning and looking at notifications, scrolling social media. Social media and mindless scrolling any time of the day is something definitely to avoid. As soon as you start scrolling and you're noticing like, oh, my energy is not feeling great, I'm looking at things and it's not creating a very good feeling. So, I mean, putting the phone down, like putting it outside of your room so you don't have that urge to pick it up. And empowered mindset. I love reading books. Like I have a ridiculous amount of books on my Kindle, in my bookshelf. And some of them I don't even read back to forth, but I think a good practice is picking up a new book every month, if you're like my daughter, every week, to really start. One of the things before I even got into this field that really shifted my state was just getting magazines that had to do with health and fitness, and I would just casually read it. But the more you can understand, the more knowledge you give yourself, and the more you implement that knowledge. So it's one thing to just absorb it. It's another thing to implement it. You're going to be making huge, powerful changes in your life that are really going to cultivate that empowered mindset. One of the things I would say to avoid is surrounding yourself in environments where a lot of people are focused on complaining. Yeah. I believe in our society, it's almost culturally appropriate to complain. People can bond through complaining, right? Especially Canada. Well, let's complain about the weather. Let's complain about, whatever, the politics. It can be very disempowering to get into those circles and get into the practice of bonding through complaining, right? One thing to avoid.
I agree. I can't agree more with that. So important to know what you're feeding your mind on a daily basis, as you started, and it's food for your mind. As you feed your body, and you either are going to support the body, be healthy, and have energy, or you're going to just take the energy away with the food you're choosing. It's the same thing with information and content that you're exposing your mind to and spend time on. And that is so, like, it's no longer like as before, you didn't question these things because we were not exposed to that like vast variety of information all over the place. The source of information was a lot more limited to TV, to maybe radio and some recorded information before the internet exploded.
Yeah.
And now we have to educate ourselves to be mindful of what do we let in and how do we not collect the information and the, let's say, knowledge that we don't want in our mind, and not to overload it. And then it's directly impacting our mood, and it's impacting our day, and it's impacting our relationships, our family, our parenting. All of it is impacted subconsciously. We will not know where it's coming from, but it's probably from what you allowed yourself to be exposed to and to what you allowed to get in.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I like how you said, I'm not sure how you put it, but it's not to overdo it either, or to consume because there are people that will consume a lot of great stuff, but it's to the point where they're not implementing any of it. They're not actually making the changes needed. And when we absorb too much, it can almost fool ourselves that we're doing something and we're really making the shifts needed, but it's to not implement what you're learning. It's where is that knowledge going? So I like to learn, implement, learn, implement, learn, implement, and really have that balance to make the shifts that are going to last.
Right. Yes, because your actions will have to align with what you're telling yourself or what you're consuming. If you want progress and if you want to get unstuck, you really have to again go back to that self-awareness and owning and responsibility, where you're going to honestly look at your behaviors, your actions, and do they reflect what you think, or what you're kind of consuming as books, as trainings, do your actions also support that information that you thought was useful and you spend so much time on? Because that can be kind of a vicious cycle where you only like to learn when you only want new information and you get excited, but then you get down because it's so hard to implement, or you're still not didn't learn how to do that in the best way so that you don't become overwhelmed. And then you're again thinking that you need to learn something new again and something else in order to help you with the implementation, which is not new information that's going to help fix that. Is addressing, okay, what's getting in the way? What are the obstacles to let you implement some of those things, and how to disrupt this vicious cycle?
Exactly. Yeah. And that's the point when you reach out for help, you reach out for guidance with someone who can really help you see your blind spots and help you see what is going on there. Because if you're just learning, and getting those hits of dopamine all the time, but you're not implementing, then there's some kind of fear going on. There's some resistance. There's something happening.
I agree with that. And what's my last question here? What message about mindset would you leave the audience with? What do you think is like the most important standing out for you?
So I would say, especially for people who are just switching their mind, who are just really getting self-aware and wanting to switch their mindset, or even people that have been doing it for years and just need a refresher, is really focusing on where's the gratitude coming. Do you have a gratitude practice? Gratitude and also fun. So one of the things that when I work with my clients are fairly successful in their professional lives, in their personal lives. Across the board, I would say one of the things that they often struggle with is, when's the last time you had fun? When's the last time you really did something fun, right? Because we can get all like mindset and switching beliefs and doing this work and yes. But at the core, if we're not having fun, then we're also not really feeding our mind and our body and our energy levels, everything. So if you're watching this right now, it would be, when's the last time you had fun? And if you have no idea and you can't remember, then it's time to go have some fun, right? Have some gratitude for living this life and go do something fun. Having gratitude and have fun. That's awesome. Yes, good. The great combination. Yes. Because once you start getting into that energy of fun and lightheartedness, and the mindset work becomes easier, right? It's not always easy when we're in these spaces of real stress and survival mode, and I know it's hard to sometimes not have fun when you're in those modes, but really just letting go a little bit, loosening the shoulders, loosening the energy, and tuning into, well, what did I used to do for fun? And bringing in a little bit more of that energy. And sometimes that might be an issue because as we mature, we stop being children. And obviously, who's the perfect, or who's like the perfect fun having person is the child, right? So that child that you were that was able to have fun is kind of disappearing as we become adults and get ourselves into different kinds of responsibilities and commitments, and we disconnect from that inner child and we stop having fun. So it's good to do a little bit of work so that you connect back to that inner child, because that's who's going to get you to have fun. Yes. Exactly. Connecting back into the inner child. Lisa, thank you so much. It's been an awesome conversation today. I want to acknowledge you for the work you do in this world of helping men and women experience breakthrough, achieve their goals, getting unstuck. I thank you so much for the knowledge and the ideas you shared with us today. It was a pleasure to have you. Thank you so much. Thank you for having me. Our awesome viewers, thank you for joining in to this episode. I look forward to seeing you in the next episode of the Empowered Mindset Summit.